Please welcome the director and producer, Gabriela Cowperthwaite. Gabriela, come on down. I hope I thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
There we go.
There we go.
Now, what attracted you to this project?
I actually became interested in the subject matter when I heard that a top SeaWorld trainer had come to be killed by a killer whale. I am a documentary filmmaker by trade, but I'm also a mother who took her kids to SeaWorld. So when I found out that a top trainer was killed, I knew just some pop knowledge about killer whales and just knew that they didn't attack people and human beings, and especially not in a place like SeaWorld, so I thought. So that was my portal of entry, and so I came in trying to figure out the answer to that question and started peeling back the onion from there.
Now, how long did you work on this project for?
Approximately 2 years.
Did you have any idea when you started that you would end up at this place?
I had no idea. I had no idea I would discover what I came to discover. So I think, the first thing I discovered was that Tillicum had killed twice before. And that blew my mind. So I couldn't believe that had happened. I kind of couldn't believe that people didn't know about that. And then the second thing I discovered was that sort of shocked me was that there's so much social strife, at marine parks, and that the whales are sort of fighting all the time. So those were two of the first kind of, I think, things that hit me like a grenade. And I just said, suddenly I'm telling a different story. I think I thought I was going to go in and tell almost a philosophical kind of story about human beings and our relationships with our animal counterparts, and more of an explorative sort of piece. And when I started finding out what I was finding out, I said, well, there you go. Suddenly the movie's taking me, and the future is a question mark.
Are you surprised at how people have been reacting to this? I mean, I just read in the LA Times this week, and they mentioned this film, that SeaWorld attendance, the revenues are down this year. Are you surprised at the reaction?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I think with being a documentary filmmaker, you never think, you're doing it, you're hoping you'll have an effect. You're hoping that you're gonna, affect change and all that stuff, but, we're not necessarily all used to people seeing our movies on purpose. Where, it's sort of the redheaded stepchild of the film industry. So I didn't know. I wasn't even sure if people were going to watch it. I mean, I just knew I had to finish it. I felt like every documentary filmmaker, you feel compelled to finish it, but you never think you're going to be making something that is going to have, a huge effect on culture, life, whatever.
You mentioned there in the film, I believe it's actually just text that message that you tried to contact SeaWorld several times. How many times did you try to contact SeaWorld for comment during the film?
Constantly. I mean, we went back and forth because they told me that it was actually likely that they might grant me an interview. So there was a time there where I was sure there would be a voice in this film. That was kind of early on. I mean, I contacted them right off the bat when I started the documentary and said, naturally, you're going to be a voice in this film. I have so many questions for you and all that. And I don't come from any animal activism. No films I had ever made had anything to do with this subject matter or animals or anything. So so maybe that's why they considered it. I don't know. Or maybe they weren't considering it. They were just telling me that. I don't know. But it was about 6 months we went back and forth.
Did it surprise you? Because it seems like one thing that you point out, they were so, for lack of a better term, good with PR for the last 30 years, but yet they decided not to do anything at all. Did that surprise you?
What I came to learn about them is that all the information that's in this film is, I didn't unearth this stuff. This information has existed for 4 decades. So whether it's animal activists or marine biologists, I mean, people know about this, And so what's happened, I think, is people have come forward with this information, and SeaWorld's been just very good at kind of sidelining those folks and saying, oh, they're just crazy activists, or whale huggers, or whatever name they can think of, and even with scientists, they're able to do that. And they're just like, but look at how happy our whales are and how happy our trainers are, you know, and I think we're all sort of anesthetized when we go there. And yeah, I mean, it's just, it's part, I mean, kids in this nation grow up calling killer whales shamus. I mean, that's just how embedded, you know, this thing is with us. And so I just think that sort of has spoken for itself. A $2 billion a year industry has been able to just completely sideline any dissent for 4 decades.
Now, I know you guys always have some great questions as well, so if you have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand. We'll start right over here. Yes, sir, in the black shirt, I believe. Purple shirt.
Is it now illegal for orcas to be captured and put into things like this?
Yeah, so in North American waters, yes, shortly after Penn Cove, after those first captures that we show in the beginning of the film, it became illegal to, you know, capture killer whales. Yet there are ways of getting a killer whale in a SeaWorld. So, for example, there's a killer whale named Morgan, who basically was sort of washed up or found very emaciated and ill off the coast of the Netherlands, and you know, someone was able to put her in a place in Harderwijk, basically kind of a marine park in Harderwijk, and legally they need to rehabilitate her. Once she's rehabilitated, they have to return her to the ocean. What they did when they got her to Harderwijk was, I guess, from what we understand, they made a phone call to SeaWorld. And because SeaWorld's basically in a situation where their whales are all inbreeding, they need fresh genes from the ocean. They said that whale's not going anywhere. So basically Harderwijk and the folks in the Netherlands had to eventually sort of say, oh, she's unreleasable. She's already eaten, you know, from human hands. So now she's never going to be able to hunt again. So we probably can't release her. So she ended up in, the drumroll, Loro Parque, which was the Canary Islands park that we showed. And she's there being raked, you know, every day. She has no place in the hierarchy. And it's just a very sad situation. And she's there, and so she's a killer whale that belongs to SeaWorld. So they're able to breed her now with, you know, fresh genes, and this makes her very, very valuable.
More questions? Go ahead and just raise your hands. We'll go over here this time. Yes.
I just want to tell you I feel tremendously privileged to be here tonight and see this incredible movie and to hear you speak. I just think you've done a magnificent job, and this will have a lasting effect, hopefully, for many years.
Thank you.
On our children, the way we raise our children, because, of course, I naively did the same thing with my son. However, my grandchildren will be treated very differently. But I want to ask you, what is your stance on animal activism now after you spent these 2 years? You started out not feeling that way, and how do you feel now?
Oh, I understand them. You know, at first I held everybody at bay when making the film, because I just, there's just some strong voices out there, you know, and whether it's, you know, animal activists or scientists or a lot of people who wanted me to sort of make this film and shoehorn information that they felt was important into the film, I just held everybody at bay and said, you know, this needs to be just a pure fact-driven story told sort of through my perspective in a way, like a mother who took her kids to SeaWorld. I have to sort of, you know, be true to the narrative and kind of follow Tillicum's story, essentially. So I was afraid as a result of that the animal activists would be like, well, she snubbed us and we're not really present in the film and therefore, you know, forget it. But it's been the opposite. They've just reached out and been so excited that the film was told by a mother who took her kids to SeaWorld. They have no problem with the fact that I was, you know, ethically not very involved or what, you know what I mean? So I you know, I don't think I've earned the stripes to call myself an animal activist or anything like that. I haven't protested and you know, and done that, but I'm just so thankful that I've made them a tool, you know, and so they can sort of arm people with information.
Have you had other groups reach out to you, you know, like those who are, you know, want people to know about what's going on with the hippopotamus population or other, and have you had a lot of those groups reach out to you now?
Yeah, a ton. It's been amazing, especially elephants, because there's just a big crowd, you know, a lot of the sentient, you know, free-roaming, intelligent stuff. I mean, they grieve their young just in the same ways that the killer whales do, highly intelligent, and then have been known to be controversial in captivity, obviously attacked because they're so bored and grieving and frustrated or whatever. So a lot of overlap between those two, especially elephants.
More questions? Let's go right up front. Yes.
Hi, I'm Kate of Mid-Gal. First of all, I was a child in 1971 when the girl in the bikini in La Jolla was dragged around the pool. And I'm just shocked that they still have SeaWorlds. You know, from that perspective. At 9 years old, I was like, how could this happen?
Right.
But I have a question. Have you researched into what would happen if SeaWorlds did dissolve? What would happen to those whales? How would they be put back in the water? That kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of people think that the whales, the killer whales at SeaWorld could just be returned and put back in the ocean. It's not really necessarily the case at all. They're hopped up on antibiotics, so they would not last for very long. They also don't know how to eat live fish. They would have to go through this huge training program to learn how to chase down their own food, since they've been eating dead fish for all these years. So for a lot of reasons, you can't kind of just dump them in the water. That said, what we advocate now, kind of as a result of Blackfish, is essentially cordoning off a cove, and basically what's called a sea pen or a sea sanctuary, whereby you could kind of semi-retire these whales into the ocean, but it would be cordoned off with a net, but a huge enough space that they could actually be killer whales for the first time, and you could watch them there. This could even be a profit-driven endeavor for SeaWorld. I think a lot of people would actually go flocking to go see an actual killer whale being a killer whale. So that's what we're sort of advocating, because you just can't toss them back in.
I'm curious about some of the footage you had from the film. It looked like was the internet helpful to you to get some of the old footage of the
Absolutely, especially for trainer attacks. I think that was incredibly helpful. But a lot of the footage, once you become part of this community and of marine biologists or whale activists or folks who have just been in whale conservation for a while, they know stories and they can point you in the right direction. They remember dates. They can identify the different killer whales by their dorsal fins or by their patch marks, and it's pretty amazing. So we were able to, once you're in that family, people pointed us in the right direction. But yeah, the internet, absolutely.
More questions. Let's go on this side. I believe white shirt.
Recently, the creators of Finding Nemo to the sequel were driven to change the ending of their film after seeing this movie. So what is it like for you as a director to see the effect that has, and to see it affect something that has such cultural significance and that millions upon millions of children will save?
Yeah, it blew me away. I couldn't. We went to screen there after Sundance. And we just, screened for the employees at Pixar. There was about, 75 people there or so, and their questions were really, really good, kind of like scarily good, like they had been like researching stuff. So it was interesting, but they were shocked by Blackfish. And so when I walked out, one of the producers approached me and said, "We need to talk. We're making Finding Dory, which is the sequel to Finding Nemo, and they wanted to discuss it a little bit. So I was able to screen it again. I just knew it had an impact. They told me it had an impact on them, but I didn't know that they were going to change the storyline or anything like that. That is huge, and I'm just, I don't even know. I'm still pretty speechless about it, but yeah, I think that they're very concerned. Their kids still call clownfish Nemos. Kids who see Finding Nemo do that. So they really have a cultural effect, and they're people who do their research, so they're not going to mess around.
Let's go over on this side. Sir in the back, I believe you're in a blue shirt. Yes, you still have your hand up, yes.
Yes, Gabriela, in the film you had the trainer, Ken Peters, dragged down by the flood a couple of times. Did you try to interview him for the film?
I did, actually. I tried to interview anybody and everybody who was in any accident, but a couple things. Ken Peters still works at SeaWorld. So, he's very proud of that, of this video. I think maybe as he should be. It was a feat, I think, for him to have survived that. And SeaWorld actually shows that video to trainers and sort of says, here is what you do if you're attacked by a killer whale. You remain calm. I mean, it's like, you know, they have like bullet points of like what to do and what not to do. I mean, and so this like is the video that they show people, and they're like, hey, the bottom line is the take-home point is, if you're a good enough trainer, you will not die. Which in the case of Dawn Brancheau was clearly not the case. She never had one window of opportunity to be able to make Tilikum make another decision. So, but in terms of everybody else, the folks who were like the man who, John Sillick, who was crushed by the whale, all those people are totally unreachable. You can't even find them. So the suggestion there, I think, is that they've all settled out of court.
We have time for a few more questions. Yes, sir, right here.
I'm still kind of sick to my stomach. A week ago today, we were at SeaWorld.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my
I know
God.
how you feel.
You didn't know. You didn't know.
We sort of suspect that this isn't, I mean, you can sort of tell this is not natural habitat. But I bought it since I've been a kid, you know, I bought it, wow, they did a flip, wow.
So did I, yeah.
But so as a lawyer, so you had some scenes, so, I mean, OSHA lawyers, I'm sorry if you're in here, are not particularly known for their skill or their aggressiveness, and the questions were pretty lame. Have there been any private lawsuits that were brought by, somebody seemed like a damn good case of, you have prior knowledge, you knew it was a situation, and man, it would be a great sell to a jury to show that film. Have there been other cases that have been brought?
Yeah, you know, I think what we've learned about individual cases, like trainer cases, is really that they do settle. Because you just never, you know that someone went to court and then you never really hear about it again, you know, especially, you know, in the 80s and early 90s and all that stuff where it's hard to find this stuff on the internet. So there's a lot of settling. And then, you know, there are folks who still want to work in the zoological industry. So they know that SeaWorld is really the top of the food chain, with killer whales for sure, but also with zoos and aquariums and so forth. So a lot of these folks, if they're seen as upstarts with SeaWorld, they fear that they will never ever be able to work in the zoological industry again. So not everybody brings a case and takes on SeaWorld. So, you know, I mean, in SeaWorld's thing is it's always the trainer's fault. It's always the trainer's fault. You know, this is just a bad trainer. So unless you're ready to get out of the industry altogether, you know, it's maybe not a winning situation to take on the giant. Yeah.
Unless you're being sued by the survivor who has no interest in continuing to work at SeaWorld.
Yeah.
It's going to take a fatality to end it.
It could be, and there's talk of that was done with, you know, some of Dawn Brancheau's family members might have brought a case to court. It's hard to know exactly what happened. But yeah, OSHA was, you know, yeah, I don't know much about their cases before, but they were pretty razor sharp in this. I mean, we sat in the courtroom for 2 weeks watching them, and it was this, you know, our takeaway point was never play chess with any of these people, because they were really, really good at, I think, just, you know, pulling back the curtain on what SeaWorld was doing.
I noticed at the beginning of the film too, CNN, I was surprised, CNN film. Was this always intended for theatrical release, or was this originally for television?
Theatrical. I always wanted a theatrical
Okay.
release. I wanted it to be that length. I didn't want commercials and all that stuff. So it was theatrical, but we had no idea if a distributor would be interested. We just went to Sundance.
Okay.
And that's when all the stuff happened.
Yeah, it's just the first time I've seen that, so I was curious.
Yeah, CNN was excited about that.
A couple more questions. Let's go this side, yes, in the striped shirt.
I lived in San Diego for 20 years, real close to SeaWorld, and I was ambivalent about seeing this documentary tonight because I went to SeaWorld plenty of times, being, you know, completely innocuous about, you know, what I know now tonight about how they live and how they're treated and cared for. And it's, you know, Anheuser-Busch bought SeaWorld, didn't they, a long time ago, and now Anheuser-Busch is owned by a European company?
That's right. And now they got out of the SeaWorld business, I think it was like 3 months before Dawn Brancheau was killed. So it was acquired by Blackstone. after that, so it's still owned by Blackstone, but actually it just went public in February.
Well, I'm sorry they didn't talk to you because of, for all the money that they make, they couldn't, and all the knowledge that they must have about caring for these animals, if they must do this, for our, brief, superficial enjoyment, why can't they put them in a habitat that is, it's gonna make them happier?
Yeah.
And,
Money.
it's just a shame that they wouldn't talk to you.
No, it is, and I mean, I think that I kept thinking, even the first year when I was learning all these horrific things and the depravity of what was going on, I was like, there's got to be. I mean, nobody goes to work every day thinking they're doing something evil, like there's got to be a pulse here, and where is that person who works at SeaWorld that could just tell me what's going on here? And what I found was that the trainers that work directly with the killer whales truly care about the animals. They are the ones who feed them. They're the ones who go every day. Very shortly thereafter, after starting to work there, they all realize that it's not what it seems. And they are...
Throw all those marketing people in the water with a few of these killer whales, like, BSing their way around, bullshitting the public.
Yeah.
How cute these animals are.
Yeah, total misinformation, yeah.
Close them all down and let them go back.
So, obviously we can all grab the pitchforks right now. I'm curious, because normally like a film like this, like, at the end it would say, for more information on how,
Right.
for people that want, to see this film and want to do something, short of not going to SeaWorld, is there anything that can be done?
Yeah, we've got, basically we send people to Voto, which is VOTO, Voice of the Orcas, .org. And basically that's the trainers that you see in the film, the former SeaWorld trainers, have basically created essentially a landing pad. So after you see this film, you can go there and learn more about the story Morgan I was telling you about. Learn more about Tillicum and what's happening to him on a daily basis. But then also get involved. There are so many I can't even tell you how many sort of amazing projects there are with sea pens and the sea sanctuary kind of world that I'm talking about for a whale called Lolita, who's right now in the Miami Seaquarium, and she was captured as in the 70s, and her mother is still alive, and they actually recognize each other's vocalization still, and so she is the biggest candidate for essentially this a slow release back to her family, and even if she wouldn't live very long after that, she's not doing that great in the Miami Seaquarium. So, but anyway, Voto is where we send people.
We have time for one last question. Since it's the last question, make sure it's the best question of the night. No pressure at all on you for that. I have to go home with this one over here, so I'm going to let her do it.
All right. You said that you had taken your kids to SeaWorld before. I'm assuming that you don't take them anymore. How do you explain that to children?
It's a great question.
What is the question?
How would I explain not taking my kids to SeaWorld anymore since I took them before? How do I explain this? Suddenly mommy is not doing that fun thing we used to do or whatever. I tell you, the strangest thing was that they are the easiest people to convince of this. I mean, there was no question. I actually think we all sort of come out of the womb with this empathy, and that it's drummed out of us, with crazy PR and candy and snacks and toys and whatever, the thumping music that goes on at SeaWorld. I mean, it's just this big, sensationalized, crazy sort of marketing ploy. And yet, all my kids had to know to understand that this is a place they never want to go to again was the calf separations, the calf and mother separations. So when I described that to them, and I said, yeah, I just got off the phone with a guy, I did an interview with a guy, and he was saying this, and it was kind of very upsetting to me, and they were just, there's no question. They just said, we never want to go there again. Why would they do that? And they saw this. They actually saw it at Pixar. When we screened at Pixar, they saw this. And aside from them later saying, oh, well, yeah, but when are we going to see a real movie? Aside from them saying that, they said, yeah, it's really, thanks, Pixar. Aside from that, the question they had about Ken Peters being dragged down, I thought that would terrify them. So I kept watching them, and afterwards I said, was that scary? They said, no, we were just trying to figure out why she was doing that. What did he do to her to make her so mad? So it's just sort of, they already are assuming that these animals have full-fledged characters, personalities, and, you know, obviously this is a frustrated whale. So they're not going to miss it. I promise. Like I said, you know, to all your grandkids, all your kids, everyone, you know, I think that you can take them to go see wild whales on whale tours. I think that eventually the sea sanctuary thing is an option. But I don't think once they understand what's going on, they don't want to go.
Now, other than accepting a lot of awards, what are your plans for the future? You working on anything next?
I am, but of course it's documentary karma to not say what you're doing until it's something. So
how long do you think it'll be before we see it? A couple of years?
Oh yeah. I take my time with this.
You guys looking forward to the next film? Real quick, tomorrow, right here at the Cinemas Palme d'Or, This Is Martin Bonner with star Richmond Arquette. Also Sunday, When Comedy Went to School, will be here as well with the director. Gabriela, this was fantastic, and thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you all.
Thanks everybody for coming out. Have a great night.
Thanks for coming.